Welcome to Embroidery Stabilizers with Kay Hickman.
A stabilizer, referred to in industrial circles as a backing, is an essential for machine embroidery. It's used to support the fabric during the stitching process to keep puckering or stretching from occurring, and some stabilizers are used to give support to the stitches during the entire lifetime of the article itself. Choosing the right stabilizer can make or break an embroidery project. But how do you choose which stabilizer to use? We'll talk about some of the stabilizers and their uses. The three main types of stabilizers are classified by how the excess is removed from the back after the embroidery process is completed. So there is a cutaway. With a cutaway, you'll cut away the excess stabilizer, and if you're going to leave like a circle of stabilizer around the design on the back of the project. A tearaway stabilizer is designed so that the needle perforates the stabilizer, making it easy to grasp and tear the stabilizer away. And this will remove most of the stabilizer from the back, though not all, because it is sometimes very hard and difficult to remove those little tiny areas inside the design itself. And then there is the wash-away stabilizer. This is used when you want to remove all of the stabilizer from the back. There will be no stabilizer at all back there. And this is wonderful if you're using something that's going to be seen from the front side and the back side, and you don't want any of the stabilizer to show. So here we'll take a look at just the cutaways themselves. So you see a large variety of cutaways. So this looks intimidating at first, but let's just kind of take it as each one appears first. And you see on the two left, those are the heavyweight stabilizers, which come in black or white. They're basically interchangeable. Then there is a medium weight stabilizer, and then there are polymesh. You see three here, and that's just because they come in the three different colors. And then there's a fusible polymesh, which is the same stabilizer, but with an iron-on adhesive coating. This is what they look like as they're laying on the table, from the heaviest to the lightest. You're going to pick the stabilizer according to the stitch count. The greater the stitch count, the heavier the stabilizer needs to be. You also want to take into account the fabric itself, because you want to use a lightweight stabilizer on something that is very soft and drapey. Now there is one really big rule. Now, of course, you can use cutaway stabilizers on any fabric, whether it's woven or any type of fabric. But if you are using a knit or a stretchy fabric, you must use a cutaway stabilizer. The reason for this is that knits are stretched as they're worn and put on and taken off. And because the cutaway is permanently behind those stitches, it doesn't go away, it's going to support those stitches throughout the lifetime of that garment, and it will not let your stitches pop as your garment is stretched. Heavyweight cutaway is going to support the most stitches, so use those for that high stitch count design that you've really been dying to try. It's going to remain behind those stitches throughout the lifetime of the garment, so it needs to be something that is kind of compatible in weight. And it is also good to use for things like sweatshirts. This is my favorite use for heavyweight cutaway. I like to use that for sweatshirts or things that are a little bit heavier. The medium cutaway is kind of between that softer polymesh and the heavyweight that we just talked about. So this is good when you still need a heavy stabilizer or something more than polymesh, but you don't want the bulk of that heavy stabilizer on the back of your project. The polymeshes are the softest of the cutaway stabilizers. They come in three colors, and you're going to choose a color according to what may shadow through to the front side, or perhaps you just would like to have black on the back of a black outfit. It's just a personal preference which stabilizer you choose or which color. This is really, really good if you're doing t-shirts or very drapey knits, because this stabilizer will kind of work with the body and work with the garment, and it will flow with it in the same way as the garment will. And it's also softer if you're going to do babies things. This is a good choice for that. Even if you're using knit fabrics, this is good for any type of knit fabric or a woven fabric. It's good where shadow through might be a problem, where you could see the circle of stabilizer on the back. You can use this because it shadows through much less than the other CutAway stabilizers. Fusible polymesh is that same white polymesh, but it has an iron-on coating. So any place you would want to use regular polymesh, you could use fusible polymesh. Ideally, this helps you prevent the stretching of the fabric as it's being hooped. Because you have pressed this to the back side, this keeps you from accidentally stretching that fabric as you're putting it into the hoop. And if you've got a design with outlines around the outside edge and you're working with a knit, I would especially use the fusible polymesh because it works so well. To use it, you're going to iron it lightly to the back of the project. You don't want to keep on pressing it really, really hard because we don't want it to be permanent. You want it to be just temporary until the embroidery is done. Then to remove it, we're going to separate the stabilizer from the fabric by pulling it apart, and then you can trim or cut the excess polymesh away from the back side of the design. The tearaway stabilizers, not quite as many, and they are again listed here according to weight. The heavy weight is on the left. The two in the middle are medium weight stabilizers. Both of those would be considered medium weight. And then the two on the right is the lightweight tearaway stabilizer, and then a new fusible lightweight tearaway stabilizer. Looking at these also, the thickness, you will be able to tell the difference in how thick they are, and that's going to be supported. Again, the thickest one for the heaviest stitches. For lighter weight designs, you could use a lighter weight stabilizer. The heavyweight tearaway has a very stiff feel to it, so it's really holds your fabric in place, and you kind of can feel that extra stiffness, and it can really help your design to look very nice. But it is also very easy to grasp and tear away. So let's say I've used this on the back of a towel. The thickness of the tearaway stabilizer, I can grab hold of that excess and pull it away really easily without accidentally catching a loop or pulling the towel as I'm trying to get the stabilizer. It tears away very, very cleanly. You see very little things outside the design. You can also use this as a base layer when you're using the cut work tool and you're stacking up fabrics in the hoop. Hoop this first to use as the back layer. Black medium weight is the only tearaway that comes in a different color, and it is available in black. It is a very firm tearaway, but it's also very easy to remove, and it does tear away very cleanly also. Ultra Clean and Tear is a medium weight tearaway, and it is very, very easy to remove from the back. This is probably the easiest, most stress-free to the stitches removal there is, because it does just tear away very, very easy. It's not quite as clean of a tear. You're going to see little white fibers extending outside the design, but those will wash away. This is probably my favorite stabilizer of all. Lightweight tearaway is the lightest of the tearaways, and it also tears away very cleanly. So if you're using a design that has just, say, 12,000 stitches or less, this would be easier to remove than the other stabilizers and be ideal for that situation. It can also be used for paper piecing, where you are going to cut it to the size for your printer and feed it in one sheet at a time, and then you're going to put your paper piecing pattern directly onto that stabilizer and then use it for paper piecing, and then it can be removed very easy. This is also my stabilizer of choice when I'm doing decorative stitches on the sewing machine side, because decorative stitches nearly always stitch out prettier if you use a stabilizer underneath your fabric. I sometimes use 2 layers depending on the stitch itself. For the satin type stitches, I nearly always use 2 layers. Fusible tearaway is that same lightweight tearaway, but this has a coating on one side that is you iron on to the back of the project. So this again, anything that irons on is going to keep you from stretching the fabric as you hoop it. And it is really easy to press on, but you just want to press it lightly. Do not try to press it really, really firmly, because again, you want only a temporary bond, because when you get through, you're going to separate the stabilizer from the fabric and then tear that away. The washaways, you see 3 different types here. The 2 on the left are AquaMesh and BadgeMaster. These 2 can probably be used interchangeably. They can be used for the same type of designs, fitting for lace. AquaFilm Backing is a lighter weight. And then I've moved the AquaFilm topping way over to the side because I don't want you to confuse that with the backing. It can only be used as a topping. It is way too lightweight to support much of anything on the back side. These are the 3 that can be used as backing: AquaMesh, then BadgeMaster in middle, and AquaFilm on the back, on the right. So you can see a drastic difference in the appearance of these different wash-away backings. BadgeMaster or AquaMesh, there are many people who have a very definite preference one over the other. Pretty much anytime you want to use one, you can use the other. It's going to be used on the back of the project when you're going to rinse all the stabilizer away. They both rinse away equally easy for me under warm running water, but they look different. One is clear and one is a meshy looking thing, but they are both very water soluble and they'll go away completely when you wash them. When you're making lace, you will use either BadgeMaster or AquaMesh. These are the ones that you would choose. And again, very many people have a very definite preference here. My personal preference is the AquaMesh, which is on the right. But I have many good friends who use BadgeMaster for lace. The reason they really prefer BadgeMaster is because after the design has finished stitching, the needle will have perforated that stabilizer, which will make it easy to tear away that excess stabilizer from around that design, and then you don't have to rinse away as much. With the AquaMesh, that does not happen because the needle will not perforate that stabilizer. Now, I like that for that reason, because I have had on occasion, I've had the BadgeMaster start perforating too early. And if that happens during the stitching process itself, the design is not going to finish stitching properly. And I've never had that happen accidentally with the AquaMesh. But when you are doing the lace, you need to consider that you will want to find a design that is considered freestanding lace or standalone lace. So look for the words FSL or something to tell you that it is a standalone lace. There are some lace collections that may even include the word lace in them, but they are not standalone, and they don't have that wording on the particular design. And you can actually see that they are not standalone also, because there may be parts that are not connected to other parts. So when you wash away that stabilizer, because we're hooping only the stabilizer for lace, then that won't hold together, as well as any straight stitches or triple stitches would wash away and would not hold together after it was rinsed away. If you do want to use a design that type, like the design that you see here, is not a freestanding lace, but if you wanted to use it as such, you could hoop either some type of other very thin fabric, like organza or tulle or very fine netting, and then you could cut around it and make your own lace medallion. And if that was the case, I would use AquaFilm Backing because that is lighter weight and easier to remove. I also use the AquaFilm Backing when I am doing quilting in the hoop. Quilting in the hoop, you can just hoop the quilt in the hoop by itself with no stabilizer, but if the hoop should be too thick to actually get between the two rings of the hoop then you should use AquaFilm Backing, hoop that first by itself, and then position the hoop over the top of the AquaFilm Backing and stitch the design. The AquaFilm topping is used any time you want to keep the nap from popping through the top. And this is the sole purpose, is to keep that nap where it's supposed to be. It's an absolute must for towels or other fabrics like velvets, velveteens, corduroys, anything with a texture even. So it is too lightweight, though. Remember to use this as backing. It also does not need to be hooped. You can just position it over the fabric, but you do need to secure it over your fabric. So you can moisten the corners, or use pins, or my favorite way is to use painter's tape, and that holds it very securely while you're doing the embroidery. Here's the difference between without AquaFilm topping and with AquaFilm topping. So you can see that this makes a very drastic difference in the way the design looks when it's finished. There are times that we can't hoop the particular project, and we have to hoop a stabilizer by itself and then place the project over the top to do the embroidery. With all the stabilizer that we have just talked about, you could use any one of those, hoop that first in the hoop by itself, and then spray the top of it with temporary spray adhesive. You'll want to protect your hoops from spray with cardstock or a manila folder, cut a circle in it, or there are also commercially products called the Hoop Shield that will work well for that too. Now after that it has been sprayed, you're going to place the fabric over the top, and then you're going to stitch the design. If you choose not to use sprays, then you can use the no spray option. So on the right are the three that we'll talk about first. The one on the left is a water-activated stabilizer, and we'll talk about that next. The three on the right are called paper-backed, pressure-sensitive adhesive stabilizers, also known as the sticky-back stabilizers. There's a CutAway version, which Stable Stick CutAway. Stable Stick Tearaway is the tearaway version. AquaMesh Plus is the washaway version. So it is the same water-soluble AquaMesh, but it has that sticky coating on it. You're going to choose that one of these according to what you want the back side to look like when you get through, as well as you're going to decide which one you should use for your stitch count. A very high stitch count would need a CutAway stabilizer. With all the stabilizers, you're going to hoop it with the paper side up. Then you will score and remove the paper, and then you're going to smooth the fabric over the top and then embroider the design. Hydro Stick Tearaway is activated by water, and because of the way it is formulated, this is a very, very tight stabilizer for holding the project to the stabilizer. It will not move. So if you're doing things like ball caps, which you don't want to move as the hoop is moving around, you don't want that cap shifting in any way, this is ideal for that. It can also be used as a base layer when you're using the cut work tool also. But to use this stabilizer, you're going to mark the center points on the back, then you're going to moisten the top side with water. You'll position the item over the top and let it dry. Depending on your climate, this is a couple of minutes, maybe a little bit longer if your climate is very humid. Now to remove it, you are going to lift and moisten, lift and moisten. You'll tear up the project if you just try to rip it off. But once you have those layers separated, then you can tear away the extra Hydro Stick. This is totally a lot of information to try to remember, but if you purchase the designs from the OESD stabilizers, on the back of the labels, you're going to find a lot of information with specific instructions for using that specific stabilizer. If you would like a cheat sheet of all the different stabilizers, then you go to BERNINA.com under the Tips, Tricks, and Tutorials, or just type in stabilizers in the search field, and then this will come up. It'll give you a listing of the stabilizers and a very brief description about what each one does. You can also go to BERNINA.com and download these two ebooks. So one is the art of hooping and the other is all about stabilizers. So this will give you additional information than what we have had today. So use these tips and suggestions to help you choose the right stabilizer for your next embroidery project. Happy embroidering!